Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really interesting material you sent over this time, all focusing on, well, improving learning and making classrooms more engaging.
Yeah, it looks great. Specifically, we're digging into some notes from a session called Adaptive Teaching, presented by Anoushka, Lett, and Bohanna.
Exactly. So think of this as our way of pulling out the absolute key insights for you. A bit of a shortcut, maybe.
We want to figure out what adaptive teaching actually is, why it's so important, and crucially, what practical things we can take away from these notes.
Right. Our mission today: understand adaptive teaching, see its impact, and find those nuggets for creating better learning experiences, all drawn from this material.
Sounds like a plan. Let's get started.
Okay, so first up, the definition. The notes mention Carol Ann Tomlinson's take: a proactively planned approach to what students need to learn, how they will learn it, and order how they can express what they've learned.
And what strikes me there is the proactively planned part. It's not just winging it.
No, definitely not. But it's also not just having a rigid plan you stick to no matter what. Is it? It feels like.
Right.
Like having that roadmap, but knowing you might need to take a different route depending on traffic or, what the students are actually doing.
You've absolutely hit on it. The planning is the foundation, sure, but the notes really stress that effective teachers are watching, listening, reacting in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They adapt and alter their teaching right there in the lesson based on what pupils need. It's dynamic.
So it's not just a technique, it's fundamental.
That's how the notes frame it, and I think it's spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Great teaching is adaptive teaching. It's sort of woven into the fabric of effective practice.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, following that, the notes list some specific areas for development based on feedback within a department.
Yes, the areas for growth.
Things like needing more pupil-centered activities, getting more consistency in how engaging and challenging lessons are.
Making sure it hits the right note for everyone.
Developing strategies for wider participation, especially across different year groups. Using AI and tech effectively. That's a big one now.
Definitely topical. And
Yeah.
It goes on, right? Differentiation beyond just the usual scaffolding.
Yeah, for students who might be struggling. Plus, encouraging more auditory, more talking by students, and creating more opportunities for real challenge and inquiry-based learning.
What I like is how these are presented, not as criticisms, but as focus points, opportunities.
Right.
Think about more pupil-centered activities. We know from loads of research that when students feel they have some say, some agency, their engagement just shoots up.
It makes sense. You feel more involved.
Exactly. And the point about activities that support and challenge appropriately, that is adaptive teaching in a nutshell, isn't it? Meeting kids where they are and giving them that nudge forward.
Yeah. So all these points, AI, differentiation, auditory, inquiry, they all feed into making the classroom more responsive.
Precisely. A richer learning environment for everyone.
Okay, now this next bit really made me pause. The statistic. Teacher visas student talk, 75-80% teacher talk in a lesson.
Wow, that's high.
It feels incredibly high. I mean, if the teacher's doing almost all the talking, what does that actually mean for student learning, for engagement?
Well, it means students have far fewer chances to, process things out loud, ask their own questions, check their understanding with peers.
They become passive listeners.
Potentially, yes. It can inadvertently shift them into just receiving information rather than actively constructing their own knowledge. Think about active learning strategies, discussions, problem solving. The research is pretty clear that doing stuff leads to deeper, more lasting learning. That 75-80%, well, it suggests a lot of missed opportunities for that active engagement.
And that links straight into this concept of wait time, doesn't it? The notes mention it, referencing some research. And apparently the average wait time after a teacher asks a question is just 0.8 seconds.
Less than a second.
Barely time to breathe, let alone think.
Exactly. And the power of just extending that pause, even by just 2 or 3 seconds, is pretty well documented.
What happens when teachers do wait longer?
Several things. Students give more thoughtful, more complex answers because they've actually had time to think. You also find that more students participate, not just the same few quick ones.
Ah, okay. Gives everyone a chance.
Right. And interestingly, students themselves often start asking better, more probing questions too. It changes the whole feel from a quick quiz to a more reflective conversation. You need to give people thinking time, right?
Absolutely. So moving on, the notes outline some key shifts in focus that adaptive teaching brings. The first one is pretty fundamental. The focus shifts on the pupil.
Mm-hmm.
And the responsibility for learning is placed more with them. How does that change things on the ground?
It's a huge shift. It's about empowering students, really. The teacher becomes less the sage on the stage and more the guide on the side, facilitating the learning.
So students become more invested.
Generally, yes. When they feel that sense of ownership, they're more likely to engage. And this ties directly into the next point in the notes about developing ideas and responses, linking it to Bloom's taxonomy.
Right, moving up from just remembering facts.
Exactly. By focusing on the pupil and getting them actively involved, you naturally push them towards higher level thinking, analyzing, evaluating, maybe even creating.
Another shift mentioned is reduce assumptions, increase empathy. That feels really important.
Oh, definitely. Assuming all students start from the same place or learn the same way, well, that's a recipe for leaving some behind.
You need to understand their perspective.
Absolutely. Empathy helps us see potential hurdles, understand individual needs, and then adapt how we teach the examples we use, how we explain things, the kind of support we offer. It makes teaching genuinely inclusive.
And that understanding then feeds into the next point, the effective use of questioning.
Yes, which is crucial for figuring out what students actually understand and where they need help.
There's a great quote in the notes from Joseph O'Connor. The quality of a question is not judged by its complexity, but by the complexity of the thinking it provokes.
I love that quote. It really turns the idea of hard questions on its head.
It's not about tricking them or showing off how much the teacher knows.
Not at all. It's about asking questions that make students think deeply, connect ideas, look at things differently, questions that spark curiosity and require more than a one-word answer.
The notes contrast this with questions like, you happy with that? Or are you listening? Which, yeah, they don't provoke much thinking.
No, those are more about compliance checks, aren't they? The goal is questions that genuinely push cognitive engagement, asking why something works or how it compares to something else, or what if we changed this variable?
Makes sense. Okay, this leads us well into meaningful student engagement. The notes define this as active participation, critical thinking, and applying knowledge. What does that look like day to day?
Well, the notes give a pretty detailed picture. It's not just students being quiet and looking busy. It's about seeing all students involved in discussions, maybe asking questions because they're genuinely curious, not just because they have to.
So variety helps.
Huge difference. The notes mention variety in schemes of work, practical activities, demos, debates, articles, different kinds of learning materials. It keeps things fresh.
And students asking and answering questions, talking in the target language if applicable.
Yes, with an emphasis on getting everyone involved, not just the confident ones. Also, things like student-led sessions or seminars.
Giving them ownership again.
Exactly. And, crucially, providing challenge at the edge of their current knowledge. That sweet spot again.
Pushing them gently.
Right. Ensuring they're engaged even in practical tasks, regardless of prior knowledge, getting them to grapple with nuance, with gray areas. It's about fostering critical thinking and independence.
I like that idea of grappling with nuance. It suggests it's okay not to have simple answers sometimes.
Which is vital for real-world thinking. It fosters that intellectual curiosity. And when students feel safe to explore and question, engagement naturally deepens.
Okay. The notes also bring in teaching Standard 5 adapting lessons to provide opportunities for all pupils to succeed while keeping expectations high.
A really important reminder.
And there's a specific warning. Avoid artificially creating different, easier tasks for different groups, or just setting lower expectations for some.
Yes, this is critical. Adaptive teaching isn't about lowering the bar. It's about high expectations for everyone, but providing different routes, different support scaffolding so everyone can reach that high bar.
It's differentiation, not dilution.
Perfectly put. Creating separate, less demanding work can actually limit students and send a really negative message.
Right. Okay. Finally, the notes end with some really thought-provoking questions for students to reflect on their own learning.
The metacognition questions. Yes.
What can you do that you could not do before? What do you know that you did not know before?
And what do you understand that you did not understand before?
And the last one, what will help you remember and use what you have learned in the lesson?
These are brilliant, aren't they? They push students beyond just listing facts.
Yeah, they make them think about actual changes in their skills and understanding.
And that last one encourages them to think about their own learning process, how they can make the learning stick. It's fantastic feedback for both the student and the teacher. Did the lesson actually land? Did it make a difference?
So pulling it all together, adaptive teaching feels like it's fundamentally about being responsive, flexible, really tuning in to individual student needs within that lively classroom environment.
I think that's a great summary. It's proactive planning combined with that crucial in-the-moment adjustment, driven by thoughtful questioning, aiming for genuine engagement, and always maintaining high expectations supported by appropriate scaffolding.
It's moving away from that one-size-fits-all model.
Towards something much more personalized, dynamic, and ultimately more effective for every single learner, meeting them where they are, guiding them forward.
And the notes leave us with a final challenge, simple but quite profound. What one thing? It's asking, based on all this, what's one single action, one small step you could take to implement or even just reflect more deeply on these ideas in your own work, whatever that might be?
A powerful question to end on. What's your one thing?
So, something for everyone listening to consider.
Definitely. And on that note, we'll wrap up with the final message from the session notes. Work well and be happy. Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive.